Hi, folks. It's been a while since I put out a video. I decided I would put a quick video out regarding some of these images that are going to be discussed coming up shortly, probably on the blogs and everything. Basically, Cynthia purchased The Thrill of the Chase recently, and she took it to Forrest, and Forrest wrote a bunch of things in there on various pages, and he also created some doodles. And that book, Cynthia's going to be doing some kind of a contest at Fenn, and somebody's going to win the book. So what Cynthia did on her blog is she basically took a picture of every page that Forrest drew on, or he wrote something or doodled. And I wanted to discuss one of those pages. So she put all of the pages out there, but I wanted to discuss one of them in particular because I went over this one recently a couple of months ago, and I actually sent my discovery to Forrest. And of course, this was back, I think, in February, early February. He didn't respond to it, but anyway, I wanted to share this with you because I believe this image is fake. And if you know what you're doing with airplanes and you tweak this image and actually zoom in here to the control panel, you could see that this photo is very misleading. You could find the altitude that he's at in here. You could find the horizon line, and you could see the direction he was flying. Okay. And clearly, this is misleading because there's a camera in the co pilot seat, and the camera is tilted up. So it's getting a profile shot of Fenn. But it's misleading because it looks like the plane is turning left when it's actually not. It's in level flight. And what I believe Forrest did is he had an old picture of him in his Rockwell Commander, and he basically cut out these windows, okay, and he made a layer behind the windows. Then he took a satellite image of the actual place where the chest is. I'll show you. I'll show you here in Photoshop, and I'm going to exaggerate it just to get my point across. Um, in in Photoshop, well, let me show you the result first, the ending result. I basically changed the image in the back and I left the colors messed up so that it stands out. But this is more like something that you would have seen. This here, I put him in Paris. Okay. So he's flying through Paris. But notice that he's actually in level flight. Maybe he's tilted up a little bit, but he is not in a left turn. Okay. But because of the way he oriented the stuff in the background layer, it makes it look like he's turning left, but the photo is not real. Okay. So in Photoshop here, you can see I took the image and I made a copy of the background layer, and then I put Paris in there on its own layer. Here's Paris. Okay. And then I tilted it. All right. So if I turn on the layer here, you can see that it looks like he's now flying in Paris. And of course, you could rotate this any way you want and change it, uh, where that is almost what he's showing in the picture, but it's not. He's really like that based on the gauges. So when he says to look at the pictures recently, I believe that there's stuff hidden in the pictures, but there's much more than you might think. And it's actually kind of interesting if he did, in fact, give us a picture of where the area, what it kind of looks like where the chest is. And he did it by superimposing it, just like I did here in Photoshop. Okay. I basically went in there with a brush. I didn't do it right. Like I didn't blend it properly and I didn't set the contrast correctly. I didn't give it the sepia tone that he has here. So it's not exact, but that was on purpose because I wanted to show you how he could have done it. He just put a satellite image instead of Paris, like I did here, and then the ending result would be this. Okay, if it was color corrected and blended properly and stuff like that. So I believe that's what he did here. And while I'm on this topic of the plane, in the audio file that Jason made from the Playboy thing, when I listened to it, one of the things I noticed, I really took note of when he described the order in which he bought his planes. Now, we know that he did not move to Santa Fe until 1972 when he retired from the Air Force. When he moved to Santa Fe and started his business, he says in that audio that a couple of years later, he bought out his partner, and that was the time when he traded the Sloan paintings for the Rockwell Commander airplane. So if you look at the timeline, that probably occurred around 1975. Okay. So that's in 1975 is when he got this plane. So yeah, he's only been in New Mexico for little over 2 years, and already he got a plane so he could fly around and fly up north. He kept this plane, he says, until he bought his Piper Mirage. And when he bought the Piper Mirage, he made sure that he put an engine in there that would allow him to fly at 30,000 feet, 400 miles an hour. And it also avoided problems he had with this plane. He had engine problems twice and almost crashed in this plane, he says in that audio. So he says when he bought the Piper Mirage was when he sold his business. Well, my understanding is he didn't sell his business until 1988. So he kept this plane from 75 to 88. And then he bought that plane in 88. And that was the plane that he primarily used to go up back and forth to Cody again, because we know that he went on the board at the Bill Cody Museum. So my point here is that even though he lived in Santa Fe, he clearly has an unbreakable connection to Wyoming. I mean, the man went there every year, not just in his book. He said in another interview that he went there every year of his life, except for when his father got his PhD. All right. So he only went with his father up until, let's say, the late 40s or maybe 1950. But after that, he continued to go. In fact, when he was stationed in Germany, when he would come home on leave, first place he would go to, it was Wyoming. So he's got strong attachments to Wyoming. And that's yet one of the other reasons why I'm searching in there. I just don't believe that it's in New Mexico. I can't find any hints that lead to New Mexico in the thrill of the chase. So that's why I'm not looking there. But when you look other places too, we're just constantly reminded that he liked to travel and get away from there. And I believe when he jumped up and down in his hat, I wrote a story to him a couple of years ago. I believe that was kind of, he was snickering. Like, he really did not want to move to Santa Fe. He did it for Peggy. Peggy is a potter. And to be a potter, you're better off in New Mexico. Also, Forrest wants to start a business. It makes sense to start an art business in New Mexico, where all the artists are, not up in Wyoming. I imagine the way the story probably went is him and Peggy talked about it a lot, and she did not want to move up to Montana or Wyoming because you're pretty much locked in your house for 6 months out of the year. That's not where she wanted to be. So he made it a point, even though they moved to where he started the business, he made it a point that he was going to get a plane and he was going to fly back and forth to there. He even makes it a point to mention to us that it was not uncommon for him and Peggy to take separate vacations. He says he would take his father and then go up north fishing, and Peggy would go with her family. And he jokes about it and says they would probably talk about him. So, is the fishing bad in New Mexico? Why would he want to bring his father up north all the time? Why did he want to bring his coach up to Yellowstone instead of it? A lot of stuff just, it doesn't make sense. Of course, the fishing's good in New Mexico. But one thing that Man Alone says that's a very good point. When he first did this chase, he had to kind of have a way where he wouldn't look stupid. In other words, come out with the chase, hide the chest. How can you do it so that it's not found the next day? All right. Well, the way I think he did that is initially he only released the book in New Mexico. He knew that people were mainly going to be searching in New Mexico. It wasn't until 2013 that he widened the search area all the way up to the Canadian border. So primarily, most people were searching south, and I imagine a few of them went north. But back then, they really didn't have everything figured out. So he was almost guaranteed 2 or 3 years that it wouldn't be found, because he released it in a place where people were primarily only staying there. When he said mountains north of Santa Fe, he meant, the mountains. And he just knew that people weren't going to travel that far initially. And that's my take on that. So anyway, the point is that these images are altered, and a lot of them are altered in the ones that he drew on, incidentally, especially the X on the page 99 map. There are a lot of theories about that, and the theory is too that that kind of is a drawing that depicts sort of what the area looks like where the chest is. So I wanted to point out is so does this image, because the one that he made, this one, is very misleading because this looks like the top of the mountain, which makes it look like he's in a left-hand turn. He's not. He is flying west, I'm pretty sure, but he is not. He's in level flight. The camera makes it look like he's in an extreme bank, which, based on these gauges, he's clearly not in an extreme bank. And he's also at roughly 7,500 feet. I forgot. I can't see it right here. But if you zoom in and brighten that part up and use the levels in Photoshop, you can see the gauges. And if you know how to read them, you'll see what I mean. So this photo is definitely doctored. And anyway, folks, have a good day and be cool. Peace.